This will be the first in a series of lessons on plant nutrition. We'll go back in history and look at some of the key discoveries on how plants grow. Now, in this slide, we see a leaf here, and today, with the help of microscopes, we know that leaves are made of leaf cells. These are living structures, that all living things are composed of cells. And the green color of the leaf is due to these green structures within the leaf cells. Of course, in ancient times, they didn't have microscopes, so they didn't know about cells, but they did speculate about plant nutrition and growth. So we'll begin our story in ancient times. Now, it was well understood that water was necessary for plant growth. After all, when the drought came, the plants withered and died. But in addition to water, lots of people in ancient times thought that plants were using large quantities of soil to grow. So we're going to call this the ancient hypothesis, that plants increase their weight due to substances gained from the soil. Now, what kind of evidence was there for this belief? Well, as Aristotle reported, he was the famous Greek philosopher-scientist, he reported that many farmers would say to him that the amount of crops harvested from the same field decreased over time, as if the soil were being used up. And so, after all, the plants are rooted in the soil, and it just sort of made common sense to everybody that the plants were using soil to build new plant tissue. And when we say plant tissue, we mean stems and leaves and such. So if this is the case, then as you plant year after year new fields of crops, well, the crops are going to be depleting. They're going to be exhausting the soil in the field. And so the idea was that soil was being converted into new plant tissue, and that's how plants grew. This idea lasted for centuries. The ancients, including Aristotle, did not test this idea. It just sort of became common knowledge. Until the 1600s, when a guy by the name of Van Helmont decided to use the new spirit of scientific inquiry to test this old idea. And again, the idea was, if plants increase their weight due to substances gained from the soil, that's our hypothesis. Now, to test this, he reasoned that if the hypothesis is true, that soil should be disappearing as the plant grows. If soil is converted into new plant tissue, then the soil will disappear as the plant grows. So the key to his approach is simply to measure the quantity of soil that you begin with, and then measure the quantity of soil after some period of growth, and compare that to the weight of the new plant tissue in that growing period. Now, we're going to use our if and then structure. The if is the hypothesis, the and will be the experiment or observation, and the then will be the prediction. And we always assume the hypothesis is true when we make a prediction. So Van Helmont's reasoning looks like this. If plants increase their weight due to substances gained from the soil only, we're disregarding water for now, and we measure the weight of the plant and soil both before and after growth, then the weight of the new plant tissue should equal the weight of the soil lost. Notice that mathematical relationship, equality, that if soil is the only thing plants are using to grow, to gain weight, to make stems and leaves, then the weight of the soil lost should equal the weight of the new plant tissue gained. It's a one-to-one relationship. So Van Helmont began with a small plant rooted in a large pot of soil. He measured the weight of the soil in the beginning and the weight of the plant in the beginning. And the plant weighed about 5 pounds and the soil was about 200 pounds. And he watered that plant for 5 years. And then after 5 years, he's going to remeasure the weight of the soil and remeasure the weight of the plant. The results were striking. The plant gained 165 pounds, and the soil lost a mere 2 ounces. So obviously, you can't take 2 ounces of soil and turn it into 165 pounds of new plant tissue, right? So the interpretation here then is that the weight gain of the plant did not come from the soil. Well, what else was there? Well, remember, he watered it for 5 years. So Van Helmont is going to conclude that the plants gain their weight by converting water into new stems and roots and leaves. Notice, just a note about our reasoning format, the results here did not match the prediction. And when the results do not match the prediction, then we conclude that the hypothesis is weakened. So you see, we predicted that the weight gain of the plant should equal the weight loss of the soil, but the plant gained 165 pounds, the soil lost only 2. That's clearly not an equality there, and so the results do not match the prediction, therefore the hypothesis is weakened. So for Van Helmont then, it was the water that was somehow being converted into new plant tissue. Yes, plants were rooted in the soil, but they did not appear to be using large quantities of soil in their growth.